starting us off is Bumble on Teysa, Orzhov's Scion. This is their pet deck, and they've been tuning it for years, and oh boy, can this deck do work. Aristocrats, a little bit of combo, and removal in the command zone makes this deck a potent threat at the table. Next up is EDH Senpai on Malcolm Vialsmasher. Today we have Grixis Pirates, and oh man, has Malcolm been putting in some work. Treasures, synergies, and combos, this is one cool deck. In the third spot, we have Vesper on Tivit, Seller of Secrets. Clues, treasures, and Time Thief go hand in hand, with the ever-powerful thrasios as backup. And bringing up the rear is Hidden on Heliod, Radiant Dawn. This is an Azorius wheel control, aiming to control the board while using Heliod's backside to let you play on your opponent's turn, while also massively cost-reducing your spells. Alright, block there, kill that. Oh, that is trample. Guess I'm just dead on board. Hey guys, welcome to another great game of CEDH. I'll keep it short this week, but I'm excited that I'm going to SCGCon Hartford. It's been such a long time since my home state got an event like this, and I'm so pumped that I'm going to go there and jam a lot of CEDH games. So if you're also going, let me know in the comments down below, and we'll certainly be getting games in. But without further ado, let's get on to the gameplay. And before the game starts, Vesper does mold a 4. Bumble starts off the game with a Verdant Catacombs, cracking the fetch for a Scrubland and shortcutting as they cast a turn 1 Sarah's Ascendant. Senpai has a Marsh Flats, cracking it for an Underground Sea, and shortcuts as he casts a Soaring into a Grim Monolith. Vesper shocks in a Watery Grave and casts a Mystic Remora. Hidden as a quick turn, just playing an Exotic Orchard. Bumble plays a Vault of Champions, tapping it for a Deafening Silence. They give a card to Vesper before heading into combat, smacking Senpai for 6, with Bumble then ending their turn with a Stone Coil Serpent where X is equal to 1. Senpai has a City of Brass, ending his turn with his Commander Malcolm. Vesper untaps and pays for her fish, with a Mana Crypt being her one non-creature spell for the turn. She has a tap Godless Shrine and then hands a turn over after that. Hidden kept a slow hand as he plays an island. He doesn't want to take any free damage and for 2 casts a Phantasmal Image, copying Bumble's Sarah's Ascendant. Bumble plays out a Command Tower as land for turn and then heads to combat, sending the Ascendant at Vesper for 6 damage and 6 life. Senpai starts off with combat, sending Malcolm at Bumble, who takes the hit, with Senpai making a treasure. Vesper continues to pay for her fish. She rolls for Crypt and is safe for this turn. A Polluted Delta then comes out, with her sacrificing the land to grab out an Underground Sea, ending her turn with an Academy Manufacturer, although Senpai does respond to that with a Vamp Tutor to put a card on top. Hidden plays a Forbidden Orchard as land, tapping it to give a Spirit to Vesper, and for 3 cast a Rhystic Study. He can't pay for the fish, but the enchantment resolves. Bumble shocks in a Godless Shrine, and for 4 cast the One Ring. They give a card to both Vesper and Hidden, with the artifact resolving after that. Bumble then taps it to draw. Combat is then held, and the Ascendant heads at Vesper for 6. Senpai on his turn casts a Glinthorn Buccaneer. He pays for the Rhystic, and the creature resolves, with him then heading to combat. He sends the team at Bumble, and the table then realizes Bumble has protection from the One Ring, with Senpai having to end his turn there. Vesper lets her fish go and is safe from the crypt. A Mox Opal then comes out, with Hidden getting to draw off the Rhystic. Next up from Vesper is her commander Tivit. Hidden draws again, with the Sphinx entering the battlefield, and due to the Academy Manufacturer, gains her 5 treasures, 5 clues, and 5 food. She then follows it up with the Scheming Fence. She pays for the Rhystic and names Glinthorn. Hidden on his turn bolts himself for an untapped Seagate Reborn, tapping out for a Smothering Tithe, giving another 1/1 Spirit to Vesper. Bumble untaps, takes 1 from the ring, and after drawing gives a treasure to Hidden off the Tithe. A Spire of Industry then comes out as land for turn, with Bumble tapping the ring to draw 2, giving 2 more treasures to Hidden. Next up is their commander Teysa. They pay for the Rhystic, with the commander resolving after that, with Senpai at their end step channeling an Otawaro to bounce the Scheming Fence. Vesper does respond by cracking a clue to draw. Hidden gains another treasure, but the bounce is good. Senpai then heads to his turn and heads to combat. But at the beginning of combat phase, Hidden casts a March of Swirling Mist, where X equals 2, by exiling a Mindbreak trap from his hand. He faces out Malcolm and Teysa, with Senpai declining to attack and heading to his second main to cast a Siren Storm Tamer. He feeds a card to Hidden, but is done after that. Vesper takes 3 from her crypt and decides to pay the tithe tax. She heads to combat and sends Tivit at Senpai. Senpai decides jumping isn't worth it and lets Tivit in, gaining Vesper another 5 treasures, clues, and food, before heading to her second main. She pops a clue to draw another card and continues to pay the tithe. Next up is a Thassa's Oracle. She pays for Ristic, and in response to the Merfolk, Senpai casts a Born Upon the Wind. He feeds a card to Hidden and then draws off the Born, resolving. This also gives Hidden a treasure. Then with the Thassa's trigger on the stack, Vesper responds with the Tainted Pact, this time not paying the 1. Fearing the table doesn't have any more interaction, Hidden responds with the Pacted Negation to counter the pact. Vesper then resolves the Thassa's trigger to look at the top 3 and put 1 back, but hands the turn over after that. Hidden untaps and pays 5 to not lose the game, with Hidden giving another spirit to Vesper. An Urza Saga then comes out as land for turn, with Hidden's 1 non-creature spell being a Chromox, which imprints a C double. Bumble heads to their turn and faces in their commander. They take 2 off the One Ring and give another treasure to Hidden, following it up by drawing 3 off the One Ring, still not paying for Smothering Tithe. A Charismatic Conqueror then comes out, with Bumble still not paying the 1. Next up is an Orcish Bowmaster, with Bumble still not paying the 1. The Orc then enters and pings the Siren Storm Tamer. Senpai pays for his tithe and then shocks into Steam Vents and passes. Vesper takes 3 from her crypt, draws and pays the 2. She then heads to combat and sends Tivit at Senpai, who is worried about giving Vesper even more advantage and decides to chump with Malcolm. Then on her second main, Vesper casts a Phyrexian Metamorph. She doesn't pay the 1 and Hidden draws. This triggers Bowmaster, and Bumble actually decides to shoot their own Orc to kill it, trigger Teysa for a spirit, and get another Orc army. Vesper then has the Phyrexian Metamorph enter as a 1 ring. She gains protection and then taps the ring to draw. She gives a treasure to Hidden, and Bumble does the same trick with the Bowmaster for another spirit. Also, Hidden chooses the treasure to enter tapped, as to not give another 1/1 to Bumble off the Conqueror. A Cavern of Souls then comes out as land, with Vesper naming Human. A Scheming Fence then comes out, and Hidden draws off the Ristic, with the Bowmaster killing the Orc army again. The Scheming Fence then ETBs and names Teysa, with Hidden at her end step Mystical Tutoring. He goes into the tank thinking about what he actually wants and decides to grab a Psych Rift to put on top. Hidden untaps, draws, and upticks his Urza Saga. A Windswept Heath then comes out as land, cracking it to grab a Tundra, with Hidden then overloading his Tutor Drift. Surprisingly, it resolves, and the board is bounced. And not wanting to see any of that come back, Hidden fires off a Time Twister, to which Senpai fires off a Swan Song. He pays for the Ristic, with Hidden then responding with the Frantic Search. The search resolves and Hidden draws 2, discards 2, and untaps 3 lands. Still with the Swan Song on the stack, Hidden casts a Flusterstorm. The Swan Song is countered and everyone shuffles and draws a fresh set of 7. This gives Hidden 21 more treasures off the tithe.
Sweet. It better be the best 7 ever. Great.
Oh,
Okay,
these
good.
are horrible.
So I chose not to sit on my
Good
deck.
God.
Hidden then casts his commander Heliod, paying 3 and 2 life to flip the god. And seeing as everyone's drawn 7 this turn, Hidden free casts a 1 ring, followed it up with the Tidesprout Tyrant. He can then tap the 1 ring to draw and follows it up with an Enlightened Tutor, triggering the Tyrant to bounce Senpai's City of Brass, who floats a blue and casts a Spell Pierce on the Enlightened Tutor. He can't pay for the Ristic, and Hidden then pays for the Pierce. The Tutor then grabs out a Chromatic Orrery to put on top. An Archivist of Ogma then comes out, with Hidden bouncing Bumble's Command Tower, and Bumble floating a white mana in response. A windfall then comes out with hidden bouncing Bumble's Spire of Industry with the Tyrant. The windfall then resolves with the table discarding and drawing 9.
I just want to act like I'm playing cards, you know, if I
Yeah.
announce some stuff.
I got you. That could be any shittier of a fucking 9 cards. I can't believe
Wow, this is horrible.
Hidden this time gets 37 more treasures. Hidden then free casts the Aura Ring and this time bounces his own One Ring, which will let him cycle through his deck until he finds a Ranger Captain to silence the table, and then a Blind Obedience, which lets him extort out the table, winning him the game. Game review. Man, does it suck to try and win in blue and white. They really make you work for it. Although maybe it was just my own inexperience with the deck. I looked back and realizes I didn't need that second windfall. I could have just started looping the One Ring from the start and definitely have gotten there. Also, I was lucky that I was able to sit back on my enchantments and just slowly gain value until I went off. And after the game, we talked about it, and turns out Senpai had the win if he just didn't attack Bumble, as no one had anything. But I guess that's just how some games go. And before everyone hops off, I want to thank a special Patreon member, Josh Schutt, for the support of the channel. And as always, I want to thank everyone that played, and remember, never give up, even if you're dead on board. I'll see you guys later.